Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Every student deserves a welcoming and supportive learning environment, and that's particularly important for students from backgrounds that have faced decades of exclusionary practices and policies limiting access and the completion of degree programs. Diversity, equity, and inclusion programs play a necessary role in fulfilling that promise of a post-secondary education by connecting students with support. But unfortunately, right-wing pundits have targeted these programs over claims that these programs are racist. This misguided discourse has devolved into bills being proposed throughout state houses, and 8 that have become law, seeking to eliminate supporting students who are historically unrepresented or underrepresented on campuses. Dr. Murphy, following the Supreme Court decision to end race-conscious admissions, this diluted thinking found its way into state policies that discouraged institutions from supporting students of color. That includes Missouri, whose Attorney General directed all colleges to immediately stop considering race in scholarships. Is this required by the SCOTUS decision, and how does the Supreme Court decision affect financial aid or other supports that are targeted to students of color?
Yeah, thank you for the question. This is incredibly important. So the first thing to say about the majority opinion in SFFA was that the phrase affirmative action, in fact, does not appear in it anywhere. They use race-based admissions. I prefer race-conscious admissions, but that is all they talked about was the admissions process. I mean, if we want to be real sticklers, they really talked about the admissions process at 2 colleges in America. But we have interpreted it as, all right, this certainly does apply to the admissions decision, right, colleges make, and every university in the country has reacted appropriately. Many politicians have not reacted appropriately. The Attorney General of Missouri issued that decision, or issued his essentially direction, in about, I think the number was 27, maybe 29 minutes after the decision came out. I read the entire decision as soon as it came out. It's hundreds of pages. I am not a speed reader, I guess, but within 30 minutes, they were prepared to say that the decision extended to all of these things. There is no mention of financial aid, no mention of recruiting processes, no mention of DEI anywhere in that Supreme Court decision.
Thank you. They clearly overreached. I find it concerning that the race-conscious admissions decision is being misapplied to prevent schools from helping students of color because, as you spoke about, and as my colleague Ms. McBath spoke about, students of color have real challenges. The average percent of students who returned to college in 2022 was 76%, but when you disaggregate it by race, students of color fall below that average. 71% of Latino students, 66% of Black, and 62% of Native American students. And this is not about personal failings for this group of people. It's about lack of access, lack of opportunities. And reducing financial aid opportunities also contributes dramatically to these gaps. Black students, for example, owe an average of 188% more than white students 4 years after graduation. What should be done to hold institutions accountable for withholding support and exacerbating these gaps in admissions?
So I think 2 things are really important. One is what I think a lot of institutions are doing is overcorrecting and eliminating financial aid programs, which again, the law did not, the decision did not address in any way whatsoever. We are seeing scholarships that are connected to race being eliminated in red and blue states. I think this is a fear of legal complaint. What also has to happen, so schools need better instruction on what the decision said. The other thing I think that we need is we need a lot more transparency in the entirety of the admissions process, right? We need, for the first time, to get disaggregated data on race and ethnicity at every step of the admissions process. This will be important for accountability, but will also be important to, I think, improve practices in higher ed as well.
Yeah, incredibly important. At the University of Washington, for example, we have an array of historically underrepresented groups that have really addressed this issue of gaps. How can institutions use that disaggregated admissions data that you're talking about to improve the impact on underrepresented students?
Yeah, so one good example is that right now we can only see who's enrolled in an institution by race. It's really important to be able to see who applied, right? So that's a recruiting question, and then who also enrolled. That's a yield question. It would be helpful for other institutions to see what's going on, not just at their immediate peers, but across the nation, to find essentially best practices.
Thank you so much. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.